Afternoon, morning.
Good morning.
Morning, mom.
Good morning.
Okay. Uncle Kula, maybe make me co-host. I think we might want to give the speakers screen sharing, just the speaker capability.
So who is the host, Simbo? Can you be the host? Because
I can. Sure.
Okay, I'm trying to make Simbo host. No. Okay.
is Hannah too around yet? It's a minute to 2. Good afternoon, everyone. At the dot of 2 p.m. Can we hear me, please? Atinuke, can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay.
Loud and clear.
It's a minute to 2 o'clock. I want to be sure that we are all on ground. I want to welcome you, ladies and gentlemen, to the CSW 66 2022 side event of Women's Consortium of Nigeria. We are placing this call from Lagos, Nigeria. And I want to welcome you all to this very, very important occasion today. I want to recognize the presence of everyone that has made it right on time. And I want to recognize the presence of the president of Women's Consortium of Nigeria, in the person of Olasimbo Sojirin. I also want to recognize the presence of Mr. Olukunle Adeogun, Director of Finance and Operations, as well as
Zoom said to unmute. They didn't tell you to unmute.
As well as Bamarajo Olateru Olabegi.
Assumes that if there's noise.
Can you please mute yourself? We can hear your voice. You're disturbing the flow. Yes, so just a minute. Okay, so at this junction, if you can all hear me, I would like to mention that this particular session would attract speakers from the US and Nigeria, and we'll be discussing current trends in human trafficking, smuggled migrants, and its interlinkages with climate change. Our topics would include empowerment of vulnerable Nigerian women and girls to combat trafficking and the interlinkages of climate change with human trafficking, smuggling of migrants, and women's leadership skills and participating skills. Join me this afternoon. It's afternoon in Lagos, Nigeria, to declare this 2022 parallel event and joint panel open. Thank you very much. Is Hannatu in the house?
Yeah, hi, Marinika. Hello, everyone.
Yes, okay. Just a few words about Hannatu. We're going straight into the program now, and permits me to introduce the keynote speaker for today, Hannatu Onogu, the Business Development Manager of Solar Sister Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, join me to welcome Hannatu as she looks at this topic, interlinkages between climate change and all that we have talked about. Thank you, Hannatu. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Marinika. Hello, everyone. It's so great to be here and to be discussing on this amazing topic. It's something that we touch base with in Solar Sister, and it's a reality. So the first thing I like to establish is that climate change actually has an impact on human trafficking. It has impact on gender, on women, and whatever solution we bring to it also has that cross-cutting impact on women empowerment, skills building, capacity building. Bringing it from in Solar Sister, one of our mantras and what we believe is that when we talk about climate change, we talk about energy poverty as one of the major causes of climate change. And one of our mantra is that if energy poverty has a face, it's going to have a face of a woman. And so that automatically means, and I think globally, research has proven that women bear the brunt and the impact of climate change. We make them more vulnerable to all sorts of both natural and human hazard, increased security risk, health risk, and even this migration too. So yes, I'll just like to start by establishing that practically from the field and from what we do, that climate change has that direct linkages to human trafficking and has that direct linkages to, migration too. So I don't know, I'll just make that as an introduction, except if you want me to go ahead, Marinike. Thank you. Hello, please. I could go ahead. I don't know if it's a panel.
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you. So, where we come from in Solar Sister, we have a mission and a goal to provide energy access to underserved communities in rural across Africa. And what it means is, and by doing this, we're focused on creating economic opportunity for women. Like I said earlier, we believe that women are the most exposed, most vulnerable. And so our approach is a solution-based approach in such a way that, we want to have a double-edged solution. On one end, providing solutions to the climate change, but another end also providing that solution to women, solving that gender problem, that gender gap in communities. So first and foremost, we are invested in advocacy. Our model is not just a problem-solving advocacy, but a solution-centered advocacy, because we are focused on underserved last-mile communities that have no access to the grid, communities that, energy sources are basically traditional, where we see women spending hours, going to look for cooking fuel, where we see women exposed to, toxic fume, increased carbon emission in this community. So those are our target communities. And while our impact, our solution is to bring this clean energy technology to that community, we are focused on women. So how we do that is we identify women in this community and invest a lot in advocacy. So we want to connect with them to understand and establish the fact that there is a climate change, there's an energy problem, and it has a cross-cutting impact. So for us, relating with these women, hearing their own practical experiences, just reaffirm, the things we believe that women are most vulnerable in, and when it comes to climate change and energy and poverty. A lot of time as a baseline, because we are focused on business development, we want to establish women to own and grow a clean energy enterprise. They become entrepreneurs in this industry. We try to have a baseline. We want to study what the status quo is, what's their experience, so that we could measure what the change is. And some of the statistics we find real-time and practical is that women get vulnerable in trying to provide energy solution to their household. Aside physical vulnerability, the woman's capacity is reduced, the opportunities are shut down. We've had young girls, denied opportunity for school because they need to follow their mothers to the forest to go look for firewood. They spend hours upon hours cooking, fanning the woods just to get heat. They spend time, they spend little resources that they have in trying to access the lightning source for the house, and a whole lot of time, especially evening hours. So productivity is also reduced. Evening hours, because there's no light, resources are limited, it just reduces that interest in any other thing that will enhance their capacity. So on a baseline, we try to study what has been this impact cross-cuttingly in terms of their agency capacity, decision-making capacity in the house, access to resources, livelihood. And a lot of times you could literally track these things to just that simple situation of lack of energy, lack of access to electricity, and then the climate change. Because we look at it holistically, one of the things we know is that, climate change also has impact on, it promotes natural disasters. So there are situations where we begin to have increased drought, farming. And in this last mile community, a lot of them are agrarian. So we've had practical interactions with women, and it's just so real that women literally have this movement, as that is induced by climate change. We've had women decline business opportunities, school opportunities, because they need to go into the woods in a particular summer season to harvest in bulk firewoods. They need to go into the woods to access water. They need to, so this thing has that impact. But what we have done, like I said, and what we are doing is, after connecting with them and establishing this reality, for us, it only affirms what we believe, and it only strengthens the solution we provide. It gives us a motivation. So after establishing this, the next we do is, so we have partnership with clean energy manufacturers, in the urban communities, the technology. So we have that partnership. And so part of our solution, most of our solution is hands-on, creating enterprise opportunities. So we invest time in awareness, bring that solution awareness that while this problem is here, there is this technology here, there is this opportunity, and it's not just to solve one problem, it's not just to give you light, but it can position you to solve multiple challenges you face. So, and how do we do that? By creating economic opportunity. So what we sell is that clean energy business opportunity to that local woman. And the impact of that, so when we talk about, the need for skills and leadership and capacity building for women, for us in our model, it has always been inexhaustible, because the impact of that for us is, on one end, according to, the way our society is, technology in itself already disaggregates people at different levels. Technology stay at the urban settlements, but we've seen where we have a loop in a way that local women, vulnerable women have access to, they become like champions of the technology in their community. That singular thing has boosted agency, has given them a voice, has made them to, look beyond that, that domestic lifestyles and limitation, and begin to become solution providers in their community. Some of our experiences has been that, on a gender base, on the community gender biases, it's normal to see men are able to access, because of maybe financial advantages, they are able to access some of these new and emerging technologies, are champions of it. But we are trying to, and we change the narratives, because what communities have witnessed is women championing this cause. That woman who has never been to a four wall of a formal education, that woman who literally has no, exposure, suddenly is talking on clean energy, is talking about climate change, is using technical terms, is bringing solution, and it's hands-on. It's not just words. They could relate. So we are focused on solar technology. So they could relate to the sun. They have this clean energy products in their hand. They are also using it in the house. And when they are speaking and talking in the community, they are solution providers. Now, the impact of that, like I said, has transcended on a very close level, increased income earning opportunity for them, because one of the things we want them to do is to earn income, make profit from this business. So the product they get through Solar Sister, they are able to resell and earn an income. So women, economic empowerment of a woman changed a lot of narrative, both for her young daughter, at a household, the children. So when women have access to resources, we've seen it change even the family dynamics. That vulnerability of the younger children to be released as paid labor staffs, that vulnerability of their girl child to be sent to go, labor out there, or just any person that come with any opportunity without investigating it. We've seen it reduced because this woman has additional income coming into her hand. We've seen these women have a voice, and because first of all, the business is helping them to champion a cause. It empowers them to also begin to have a voice on other situations in the community. Like I said, in a baseline, some of the things we also try to find out is, are there things in your environment you really want to change? Are there things you're not comfortable with? And over the years, we've seen, these women own a voice. We've seen these women have presence before the village heads. We've seen these women, being able to speak up, not just on their personal things, but things that change community attitude. And so this brings us to where empowerment is very important for women. And in Solar Sister, one of the things we do is beyond just giving them access to the clean energy technology, we are invested in business skill and leadership training. We have a monthly based curriculum, progressively. We are very invested in trainings for these women. And we do it in such a way that it's contextual for them. We put them in a sisterhood group. They have that peer-to-peer connection, and they are able to groom themselves. And then we have our business development associates who, serve as business mentors, trainers, coaches, interact with them, support them on their businesses, and also have these trainings. A lot of the training, while it's to support them grow their businesses, we are also deliberate on strengthening their agency capacity. We let them know, first of all, we have to change belief systems, and these are imputed in training. We have trainings on, yes, I can, having to look at yourself beyond the limitations around, and step out. And we've seen the impact of this, not just in their businesses, but like I said, in their lifestyle, in their home. So climate challenge, climate problem it looks like it's a standalone, but it's really cross-cutting. It's really, really cross-cutting. We've seen young girls, spend more productive time in their studies now, because they have access to light to study in the evening. We've had women who have shared their experiences, like, from this business opportunity, I'm able to give something different to my daughter. I'm able to give something different to my child. They are able to push for, not just settle for that immediate, going beyond survival and different conditions. They are able to look at what an empowerment. So they themselves begin to step down the same empowerment they receive, to their girl child. And like I said earlier, we are deliberate on peer-to-peer networking. And so when we talk about enhancing women's leadership, I think there is need to have this women to women, even at the local community, that deliberate woman to woman, peer-to-peer networking in a positive setting, so that it's not the normal, competition and all of that, but each one becomes each other's accountability partner, and they are seeing themselves as a team. They see themselves as, you know, a force that is doing something different. So just to re-say that from our experience, it's when we are linking climate change, we're linking human trafficking, irregular migration. It seems a direct chain. It's just a direct arrow going hand in hand. That the same way women leadership capacity and skills also will have also that direct impact in solving human trafficking and irregular migrations. And that's climate and change, you know, energy poverty, energy problem, especially in these underserved communities, are not standalone. It actually carries along multiple other problems inside. And one of the, you know, things we've also seen from community is health issues. You know, women are exposed to health challenges, and it incapacitates them from doing any other thing. So they become more of, you know, victims. They are only waiting for any opportunity that come. And one of the things that triggers human trafficking is when people are reduced to, you know, brought to the mercy of any opportunity. So they are easily lured, you know, easily bought over, right? So empowerment is very, very important. I want to say that energy solutions, clean energy solution, energy technology for us in Solar Sister has been one tool to solve climate change. Yes, because we also want to measure the level of reduced deforestation. We want to measure the level of reduced gas emission, reduced carbon emission. We also want to look at that. So the products we carry, like I said earlier, we are leveraged on the solar energy technology, but we are also stretched to clean cooking, because we know that from a gender lens, aside from lightening in the house, one of the weightier space where energy poverty is really loud is in, you know, providing cooking and food in the table, which is strong on the women. So we partner with manufacturers of energy efficient cook stoves. These cook stoves that, you know, could reduce the number of fuel needed, reduce carbon emissions. We also have a variety of products that go from, you know, small solar lightening lamps, you know, to phone charging lamps, to solar home systems. And over the years, one of our focus has been on business growth of the women. And I can confidently say that business growth of these women is tied hand in hand to the skills they learn, the leadership capacity they build. Most of our high flyers, so, you know, you have a woman who her business has just been in the small product because it's cheaper, it's easier to sell because of the community economic resources and their purchasing power. But over the years, this woman has been able to step out beyond that community and are even accessing offices, are speaking to, you know, leaders, government officials, and are able to sell these technologies to even learned people. And we've also seen in our training, we train them to also manage resources. How do you manage your profits? How do you protect your capital? How do you grow your businesses? These are very deliberate trainings we do, practical, providing them even marketing tools. And we've seen these women reinvest and grow their businesses. We've seen them build other businesses from even the clean energy business they do. And we've seen them change narratives in their household, in their environment. We've seen, you know, we've seen the impact not just on our entrepreneurs, but even on their children, on their girl child. So it's been an amazing journey for us. We are always learning, because each time we hear these stories, it just gives tangibility to the things we believe. So even when we talk about this focus of conversation, for us, it's tangible, it's practical, that yes, climate change is real, the problems are real, and they are cross-cutting, and that it can affect, and it actually affects migration, it affects trafficking. And in order to solve all of these things, we can't but also begin to look at skills and leadership empowerment of women. And that's been what we've been invested in Solar Sister. I would like to put a pause here. Hope we heard me clearly.
Yes, we heard you clearly, very clearly. Hannah too. Sorry for before. I think it was network that happened. Yes, so good afternoon, everyone, again, from wherever you are calling from, wherever you are, joining in from. You're welcome to Women's Consortium of Nigeria's Commission for the Status of Women's 60th Session platform. We're looking at the interlinkages between, climate change, human trafficking, and irregular migration. Hannah too has said a lot, and I want us to give an e-clap to Solar Sister, an e-clap to Solar Sister. Well done, Hannah too, well done, Solar Sister. It has, for over 26 years, WOCON has worked with women and girls, vulnerable women and girls, and we have continued to combat human trafficking and smuggling of migrants. And there is no doubt that empowering women and girls is the solution for all of this. I can see that this is what Solar Sister is doing, and we are so glad to be associated with you. We're proud of what you're doing. You've spoken a lot about partnerships, the additional income stuff, that you mentioned. I am so interested in that, to hear that again, because I was off for a minute. The monthly programs, and the fact that you have not only done all of that, you have also, changed their belief systems, their mindset, and the peer-to-peer programs that you have done. All these are commendable. And I want to say, like I said before, this is just the way to go. So I'm going to be leaving the floor open now for questions, for contributions, and inquiries or whatever comments you have. I'm going to be leaving the floor open now to anyone who would like to ask Hannah to either a question, make a comment, or add to what has been said. Thank you. The floor is open. Anyone? Questions? Any questions? Is anyone raising their hands?
Yes, I have my hand raised.
Yes, Dr. Remi Alapo, you're welcome all the way from New York. She's a WOCON associate, and we're so glad to have you here. When she's giving her remarks later, we will introduce her properly. You're welcome, Dr. Alapo.
Thank you so much, Ms. Morenike. Ms. Hanatu, thank you so much for the excellent presentation. You could not have summed it beyond what you've discussed about the plight of women in climate justice, and also in, human trafficking activities, around Nigeria and in many places where WOCON works. And, I commend you for your efforts in the types of activities that you've been carrying out in, alleviating, the plight of women, especially rural women and young women who, one way or the other are lured because of insufficient or lack of opportunities to economic activities. And I know that one of the goals of WOCON is to create vocational training for young women or, women in general, so that they can have sustainable livelihoods, forms of economic activities, instead of being dependent on partners or other family members. And also in terms of them not being lured, when they're busy, when they have a small business or some sort of gainful employment or economic activities, chances of them being human trafficked is very, very low. As a matter of fact, is non-existent, because no one that is occupied will leave their business if it's thriving, and if they have the type of support that WOCON offers these women, they're not gonna leave and be trafficked or be lured to other countries. And one question that I have is that when you have these trainings and these young girls or women graduate from the program, is there a mechanism or a way in which WOCON collects, let's say, data, for future purpose, to be able to use the same data? I mean, is Solar Sister, and of course in partnership with WOCON, is there a way that data is collected to see how they're doing, 5 years from now, 1 year from now? What is the impact of the program on the lives or livelihood of these women? And once they are, maybe graduated from the program, how does Solar Sister or WOCON monitor or measure how, the women or young girls are doing? That's my comment and my question. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Alapo. Over to you, Hannatu. Would you like to say something in that area?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Remy, for your question. So for us in Solar Sister, our program is actually continuous because we're building businesses. These women, for as long as they are available to grow their businesses, for us, we don't have a limit to our ambition for them is limitless. We want to have people who own a registered business such a way that their clean energy business become an established cooperative. So what that means is that we don't have a graduation timeline for these women. What we have is from the point of interest, to be an entrepreneur. So long as you're a Solar Sister entrepreneur, you have access to that monthly training, you have access to that monthly engagement, and it's continuous. We've tried over the years to also profile our entrepreneurs because, yes, truly, we've had women who had been with us for a while, and, after some time, they step off the businesses, either to go start other business or for some reason. And we've tried to profile them into what we call alumni. And what we try to do is to still establish engagement with alumni by, continuous sharing of stories, continuous sending of messages, just to keep them abreast with the opportunities in Solar Sister. And what that have done is that we've seen alumni, come back, so restart the business from where they stopped. We've had people who, for one or two reasons, couldn't continue their business because the business is theirs. We are only, all the structure we have is to see them grow. So we try to give that support for ongoing business engagement. So in data collection, every year, we're very deliberate. Like I said, from the beginning, at the onset, we try to have a baseline data. And so every year we have this, just some survey to engage our entrepreneurs, ask questions, know their challenges and see how we can get more innovative to support them grow their business. And then over the years too, we've been deliberate on, entrepreneurship engagement. So what we've been doing is beyond just going into the community and engaging these women, we are providing forums, you know, that bring these women to be part of bigger programs. You know, we've had local, you know, we've had our entrepreneur, you know, represent to speak somewhere else. We've had forums that celebrate them, and they go back to their community as champions, you know, supporting the other women to grow their business. So we don't have a timeline of graduation because our business ambition for these women are limitless. And yes, we have data that we monitor, you know, how they perform. I hope this answers your question.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you very much. It does.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alapo. Any other question in the house? Any other question? I thought I saw a hand up. Okay. In the light of Dr. Alapo's question, I would also like to quickly chip in that in WorkOn, I mean, she asked a very interesting question about, you know, how do they, you know, keep these women and all of that. The experience has been different in Women's Consortium of Nigeria. You know, when the girls return from, when they are rehabilitated, or let's say when they are returned to Nigeria, returnees, let's just call them returnees, when they are back, and we have processes for them in terms of rescue, the rehabilitation, the reintegration, the psychosocial support, and all the things that, you know, civil society, you know, provision of services that civil societies engage in. What we realize is that although these girls were exploited, they were deceived, they were forced, sometimes even abducted, you find out that they want to go back. They didn't want to be, you know, forced into prostitution. They found themselves in those situations. And that limits our database a lot. WorkOn for 26 years, and I think will be 27 years this year. WorkOn for 26 years plus has rehabilitated hundreds and hundreds of thousands of women, you know. But if you look at the phone numbers you have, the database you have, you will see that a lot of them have either been victimized, you know, or they have decided they are going back. Re-victimization, you can also even mean that they decided they were going back, you know. Somebody re-victimized them because they also have the willingness, because you cannot be exploited, you cannot be deceived twice. You've been deceived. If you don't want to do that, of course, you would have said no. So most of the time we find out that what happens is that they don't want to stay in Nigeria. They've looked at the beauty of Italy, and they want to go back there. The comfort and all the issues that we have seen here. As we continue these discussions, we will look at the pull and push factors, the issues that continue to drive them. And one of the things we would also like to address is how can we get this to stop, so that and you know, one thing I haven't said is about the empowerment that we also do with them or for them. You know, we empower them, like Solar Sister has listed a lot of the programs that they do. You know, we do a lot for them, and we collaborate with National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, Ministry of Women Affairs, you know, development partners, international organizations, and most of the time, or let's say some of the time, you find out that these girls would always like to go back. But, you know, just a bit of digression, and then we can move on quickly. Thank you, Hannatu. We haven't seen the end of it. We're still going to come back to you, and then we look at what we have next on our agenda. Yes, thank you. So Next now, we're going to be, just a minute, I'm quickly trying to check the agenda. Next, we're going to be looking at, the youth advocates that WOCON has in New York. She's Nandini Singh. She has a recording and she's looking at the interlinkages of climate change and human trafficking from the youth angle. She's in school and she wasn't allowed to leave school to do this. And I want to ask Atinuke whether her recording is here. If it's not here, we will move on to the next person who will say a few comments and then we can come back to her. Atinuke, has she given it to you?
No, ma, she said she sent it to your email, ma.
Why didn't you tell her to just forward it to you, you know? Let her forward it to you, please. Okay, I'll forward it to you. And then we've done some questions and answers, and I want to know whether, you know, we still have anyone who wants to answer questions. In the absence of that, I'd like to call Dr. Tokunbo Shofola. She has been a WOCON, you know, member for many, many years. She has done tremendous work. I hope she's here. Is Dr. Shofola here?
Yes, she's there.
Okay. She has done tremendous work, you know, in she's done a lot of work with us, for us, and even after the demise of our late founder and executive director, Auntie Tokes, like we fondly call her, has been there for us. I want to welcome her to say a few words. She's the what would I call her now? Executive Director of African Women's Alliance, Incorporated, USA. Join me, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome our very own Dr. Tokunbo Shofola. Auntie, I'm so sorry. I didn't acknowledge you at the beginning. I didn't know you were there. I was only looking at the names. So welcome, Auntie Tokes. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I was having technical difficulties. I'm delighted to be part of this gathering, and I won't take any more time than that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, has she finished? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Okay, she has finished. All right, thank you, Auntie. You're welcome. We're glad to see you and all of that. Can I call Mr. Olukunle Adeogun to say a few words on climate change and its interlinkages with human trafficking? Mr. Olukunle Adeogun is the Director of Finance and Operations for Women's Consortium of Nigeria, and Mr. Adeogun is a man among Women's Consortium because we want to be gender balanced. Join me to welcome Mr. Olukunle Adeogun. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Maiboje. And thank you for the coordination. Good to see Dr. Remi Alako. We usually see once a year like this. And Sister Tokes, I wish this pandemic will go quickly so we will have that opportunity to see face to face. Hannatu has said a lot on climate change. Simply put, we know that climate change is a long-term shift in temperatures and weather patterns. And this may be natural and it may be man-made. But in this case, we know that the activities of humans, like we've been doing, you know, this burning of, gases, fossil oils and all that has brought in a kind of situation that we're now trying to manage. And then there's temperature everywhere. Where we are in Nigeria, when you want to sleep in the night, it's so high here and there. And it's now getting obvious that we need to do something about it, and something is happening. At the moment, it's leading to droughts. There are storms everywhere. There are heat waves, and there's rising sea level. Warming oceans and all that. What are we getting from all of them? We are having harmful situation for animals, you know, people's homes being destroyed because when storms come, they destroy houses, they destroy places and all that. And then they wreak havoc on people's livelihood. So there is a kind of situation which we need to move towards. And some of these issues can instigate human trafficking in terms of mass displacement, conflict, extreme poverty, like Anatu has put it, and lack of access to education and job opportunities. You see, once you have a situation that is making people uncomfortable, there will be need for people to move from one particular place to another. And this is not helping at all. The impact of climate change also becomes something that will become big businesses for human traffickers, because they've seen that people are now migrating. And by the records that we have, we understand that about 1.4 billion people will move from one location to the other due to the issue of this climate change. And that will be a kind of atmosphere that traffickers want, and they will probably exploit that situation. The rise in forced labor is now being seen. Sexual exploitation and other types of trafficking will be driven by many of these effects of climate change that are already well known and widely documented. So by and large, we see a relationship between climate change and human trafficking and all that's come with it. Michael Gerard, one of the directors of Sabin Center of Climate Law in Columbia University, said, and I quote, "There is no question that climate change will make things worse." So everybody has to be prepared that that situation will come, and we need to somehow, guard against it, or at least minimize what is going to happen when we get to a situation when everywhere is heated up, and when we need to now see what we can do to try and curtail human movements and migration. There are so many things to think about to avoid this. And there's a way that we need to position ourselves in such a way that women are not that vulnerable for that situation. And I to put it one way, he said, if this issue has a human face, that human face will be a woman's face. Because we all know that they are the keepers of homes, and any slight change in situation, affects them more than anyone, because they have to guard against, so many things, keep their homes, keep their children, and all that. Because of that, women leadership, women advocates, we have to just see how we can collate all these things together and see that women, are not always vulnerable to issues like this. IOM itself put it as a kind of explanation to say that there's a link between climate change, human trafficking, and smuggling because of the issue of temperature changes, issue of people not comfortable where they are, people not now wanting to move to where they think they have to be a little bit more comfortable. So this discussion is not, it is now that we should start discussing all this. It is now that we should start talking about it to see how we safeguard, what will come up with these temperature changes, climate changes that we've been having. At the government level, a lot is being done by the powers of this world, coming up together, thinking about what to do, reducing gases, reducing flaring, making people technology, compliant, trying to bring down, the use of oil, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and all that is depleting, the climate and is making it to store heated, compositions of gases that will eventually come to be a kind of situation. Once government is doing their own, we need to do our own too by advocacy and warning people and reducing, all this industrial waste, that is causing a lot of pollution, and that is creating a kind of climate change. And this can be done, by talking to each other, making sure that things do not get worse, because in some areas like Bangladesh and the Philippines, they've started feeling it hard and they've started moving. People have started moving from one place to the other. And the movement is not just within their immediate environment, but to where they think they will be more comfortable. So by and large, women, are, in the forefront of all these issues, and trafficking is directly related to it. And the more we can, see how we reduce the problem that this climate change will bring, the better for trafficking. Because if we say that we want to curb trafficking, there shouldn't be a kind of atmospheric condition that will encourage it. Because traffickers will always pounce on every opportunity to make sure that they go ahead with their illicit trade, and to see that they make more gains by, trying to exploit people. Now, not just women and children, even some vulnerable men are now open when it comes to issue, because people are moving, people are not comfortable, and people need to relocate sometime to get some few things done. And they probably, the traffickers, they try and make use of every opportunity that they see to do this exploitation, and to see how they actually, exploit vulnerable people. So it's something that is in the forefront. It is something that we should keep discussing. It is something that we should, see how we can do as much as possible to make sure that we curb the trafficking and the movement that is regular in this matter, so that climate change will not be all woes for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adeogun. That was really extensively discussed. Yes, we can see that both Solar Sister and Mr. Adeogun said the same thing. So Solar Sister and Wokon are saying the same thing. Poverty wears a feminine face, vulnerability wears a feminine face, and we all hands have to continue to be on deck to fight this scourge, these crimes, and to ensure that women are fully empowered to take their positions in leadership and possess participating skills to help them out. I haven't recognized the presence of a larger group. We have a US-based group. We have Karen Sigel here, and we have Karen Sigel. We have Auntie Mabel. We have Auntie Mabel, and who else now? I'm missing someone. We have all of them here. Every year we come together in this group to do this tremendous work, and they are here again today. I want to also recognize everyone that I haven't mentioned your name. I can see Toyi Towobola from Women Protection Organization. I can see so many other people that are here. Wokon staff, we thank you. Who else am I missing? All of you. Dr. Sigel, I've talked about Bamara Jo. I can see Louisa Lamtok, Naomi Kami, Elizabeth Mosumola, We welcome all of you. Sonia, Rukayat, Audrey, Lamide of Wokon, Sarah Whiting, and all of you. We can see Yosh, Mura, Dr. Karen. We see all of you. We appreciate you. We thank you for making it here today. Our topic still remains the linkages between the crimes of human trafficking and smuggling of migrants. So I don't know whether there are any questions or contributions so that we can move on in this program. We have about 35 minutes more. Anyone who wants to say anything?
Good morning, everybody. This is Karen Siegel, and I come to you through my dearly beloved sister, Dr. Shofala. And I'm with the Zonta Club of Greater Queens. I've been part of Zonta, who has many clubs in Africa. I think going back to 1998, I served as an NGO representative. And I remember forever my first day at the UN representing Zonta. I was wearing my kente cloth scarf with my pins. Sister Dunstan at Macaulay had made up for us in Togo. And I was wearing my Zonta pin, and the SG, Kofi Annan, came through the cafeteria, greeting everybody, from the diplomats to the people sweeping the floors. And he came, I dared go up to him, and he put out his hand, and he said to me, Zonta, you do good work, especially in my Africa. And I came home and I told my husband, I'm not washing my hand for 3 weeks, and you are in serious trouble now, guy. Those were really very powerful days for the NGO presence at the UN. And the work you are doing is key to Zonta's mission to advance the status of women and girls and their families. So I applaud you all. And working together, the intersectionality of all the crises facing our precious planet, intersectionality, your work is just truly important. So thank you. I'm gonna have to ring off. I have another meeting. So, but I applaud you all and wish you peace and success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Siegel, for those fond memories. That was really, really beautiful. We want to thank you so much for honoring the invitation and for having been. Zonta is one of our many partners in the US, and we've worked with them for a long time. We're so glad to have you. Thank you for those memories. We celebrate you. I can see Olufemi Abe as well. Is a he for she, and a very dear Wokon advocate. Femi, thank you for checking in. We celebrate you. Do you have anything to say? Auntie Mabel, I hope you are warming up. You have to say a word before we leave today. Simba, would you want to say something too? After Mabel. Mabel is ready. Auntie Mabel, over to you. I cannot hear you. I don't know whether others can. Can you hear her?
Hello?
Okay, now, can you, I can't hear her.
Hello?
Yes. Okay, Femi, you want to say something?
Yes,
Okay.
Good afternoon from Nigeria. Good afternoon, everyone. Delighted to be in this beautiful and interesting discussion today. Well, we cannot overemphasize the impact of climate change or relationship or the bridge between climate change, human trafficking, and irregular migration. And of course, I've learned a lot today as far as Anna too had given a presentation. I had very little thing to say now. And I've also listened to Mr. Adeogun, who has also spoke in that same direction. Of course, one of those things I have to just say now, because Mrs. Morenike talked about the frequent re-trafficking that has been a system in itself in WOCON, just not just WOCON, but we keep seeing this. I'm a researcher, and we keep seeing all of this trend happening over and over again. And listening to Hannah too, I've been able to see some linkage in what she was saying and the recommendations we've given in time past. Okay, so it's a new phenomenon to have women coming in this direction, giving projects or programs that would involve women itself matters a lot when you want to tackle human trafficking issues. And so one of those findings we actually looked at during our research is that we must, Mrs. Morenike, I'm responding to what you said about trafficking now, because one thing that we've discovered that makes victims to be trafficked again is because in most situations, like Dr. Adegun said, that if, human trafficking wears the face, it wears the face of a woman. Women carries all of the burden. And most times there are many persons who are dependent on that woman or that victims. Most times when we propose solutions or programs to these women, we don't look at their dependents. So the dependents' needs are not always considered during reintegration programs. So it's like the problem they see, the reason why they left, the reason why they were migrated or were trafficked is still there. So when they come back, they consider themselves as failures, and so they want to go back again. Of course, they've understood why they failed in transit in the middle, and so they want to go back again. I've seen girls who return to Nigeria who only came back to Nigeria to establish herself very well, to move on again, to be trafficked. And also, another agreement with what Madam Anatu said is that most of the time, if we are looking at awareness raising, yes, we could do advocacy, but are we providing alternatives? This is an alternative now. We should provide alternative source to livelihood to these victims, to these women. So it is not always telling them that human trafficking is not the best, or telling them irregular migration is dangerous. We need to provide alternative, and the technicalities of how we give them these alternatives matters a lot. This is one of those things we need to emphasize on. We need to understand that these women must be empowered, and empowered where they are needed. Their services are well needed, not just giving them, for example, what we've discovered in our research is that NGOs, government bodies, policymakers will provide what they have. In most cases, it might not be what is needed, where that lady will be reintegrated or will be rehabilitated. So most times they sell off the project they're giving to them, and they move back again. So we must understand what is selling in that environment, what is needed, of course, or what would benefit the environment or the neighborhood that person is going to be reintegrated with. And so also they will discover there's a poor communication and duplication of activities among stakeholders, because everybody is doing the same thing. All of the NGOs are doing. That's why I really appreciate myself being here today. I've learned a lot about what Solar Star does, and this is something we need to emphasize on, because everybody is doing the same thing. We are doing everywhere we go to. If I go to Benin, come to Lagos, everywhere I've gone to for meetings of this kind, now reports, we see everybody doing the same thing. So no, there are no things to learn new. So this is something I think we must begin to look into. Mr. Alatu, thank you very much for your contribution, and welcome. You guys are doing great. I'm glad to be in this gathering. I'll still be way behind to learn more and to impact the world positively. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Femi. Thank you so much. Thank you. we are pressed for time now. Before I give my own wrap up of looking at it from the angle of human trafficking and smuggling of migrants, I think Simbo is ready to play the presentation of Wokon youth advocate, from the New York. She has her recording. Simbo, are you ready with that?
I'm ready, but just before I go on, I just want us to check that Auntie Mabel's audio, if it's back.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, Auntie Mabel, that's true. I'm so sorry. We
Yeah.
didn't hear you before.
Yeah, I don't know what was happening. I just want to say a big thank you to everyone for putting this panel together, and echo my brother who spoke before me. We're looking forward to the times where we can have that physical conversation and really, have some really meaningful, discussions about it. That said, we thank God for technology that allows us to still meet, despite the challenges. My contribution will be more, general in terms of leadership and everything. We've talked about poverty wearing a woman's face. We've talked about, trafficking wearing a woman's face. We've talked about climate change impact wearing a woman's face. For me, climate change doesn't just wear a woman's face, it wears a rural African woman's face. And that's simple because all these things have one thing in common. I mean, they all exemplifies the gender inequalities that we're talking about. When I listen to the intervention that Abby just made, the reasons these girls are going back after it's not because of them. The families expect them to provide. The families expect them. There's so much expectation on them because of the inequalities. And I was in a panel yesterday, and the vice president of Liberia put it so vividly. It's like, we can talk until the cows come home. We can do all these good advocates. As long as we are not addressing gender inequality, things are not going to happen. We're not going to, address all these issues we're trying to address. So that becomes like a starting point. Why are these girls, living? What are the inequalities they face? How do you deal with that? Then you can start talking about poverty, trafficking, and everything else that goes with it. That's one. And then the second one, I just want to looking at the theme for this year about leadership. I recognize the work that Wokon, Solar Sister, and everybody is doing. Women for the last so many decades they've been leading. They live, that's their life. I mean, they've been leading, but then as well, we've not recognized that leadership. And that's what we're saying. We need to recognize the leadership. We need to reward them. We need to give them the money to do what they need to do. Because the forum I was in yesterday, they said, they gave an example of only 3.1% of development aid gets to the rural community. Where does the 97 goes to? And that rural community is where this, where all these issues are, are happening. So we need to change that narrative. And finally, on the climate change, I was just listening to the presentations again. They're like, in Africa, let me speak for Africa, my continent, we need to change the narrative from emission to mitigation and adaptation. That's why I'm happy with the work Solar Sister is doing. Because when you look at us as a continent, our contribution to emission is from 1 to 4. When you look at the impact, almost like 100, removing the other, other countries, maybe low-lying countries of different continents. 9 out of 10 of the most impacted countries on climate change are in Africa. So when the global discourse is on emission, as a continent, we should be looking at mitigation and adaptation. And I commend the work that Solar Sister and everybody else is doing. That's where, for me, we need to be putting the money. And one young activist put it so well yesterday. Yes, we consult. We need to balance consultation and activism to change the narrative on the, on the African woman being the face of everything negative. And by doing that, we need to address gender inequality. And on that note, I just want to say thank you again, Wokon, for everything. And thank you to everybody who took time to participate in this event today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Auntie Mabel. Thank you so much. This meeting would not have been complete without us hearing your voice as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all the angles you have come from. Very educative, very enlightening. Over to you, Simbo.
Okay, can we hear?
The nexus that is climate
Yes,
change,
we can.
irregular migration, and human trafficking. Consortium of Nigeria's United Nations liaison and global advocate. I am passionate about abolishing human trafficking and eradicating the paradigm of suppression that exists upon women. To begin, sudden onset disasters like hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods can cause unexpected loss of land and lives and create challenges to provide for one's family. This leads to many people being plunged into poverty and desperate for deriving any source of income, which often translates to nefarious ways of making money. Furthermore, on the other side of a disaster, displaced people, namely young women and young children, are left without any means of escaping their current situation and are seen as prey for traffickers. A woman's desire for safety and some income leads her to fall victim to traffickers who make false promises of a better life in a foreign land. Yet there are also dangers in the slow onset disasters that may arise. Populations of people that rely on natural resources may be affected by events such as coastal erosion, sea level rise, and glacial retreat. They may take proactive measures to diversify their income. Migration is one such strategy to diversify livelihoods, implying that slow onset disasters lead to irregular migration patterns, which in turn lead to trafficking. Irregular migration often leads to displacement of people in urban slums, which are densely populated areas of land that are often hotspots for criminal behavior because there are little to no political provisions that prevent the prevalence of illicit activity. Oftentimes, agents come to these neighborhoods and promise families that the young daughter will be able to secure a stable job and provide for her family. But these women are subsequently cut away from their families and sold to brothels where they are sexually exploited. In these brothels, women are subjected to heinous and non-consensual acts and are stripped of their identity and the covenant of femininity they hold so dear. The owner of these brothels and the agents take a large stake of a woman's earnings and leaves her financially dependent on the brothel so she can never leave. Moreover, majority of the time, young female climate migrants do not have sufficient education or even a bit of savings to support themselves, and this leaves them without any bargaining power. Oftentimes, cultural norms and social dogma dictate a woman's right to education. And without education, she does not know other outlets that she can pursue and only sees the outlets presented before her by traffickers. Young women will not be able to assert their needs without education because they have been branded to be without any intrinsic value. Their minds are not valued, but their bodies are. Natural disasters can also lead to the rise of selling off young female relatives as servants to work in a home and not be reliant on a family's already strained income. Oftentimes, families do this because they believe that the money that they will get from selling her off will be able to sustain them until they can get back on their feet, or because they believe that selling off their daughter gives her a chance to, make money for the family, send it back, and having each child do different things will help support the family, or oftentimes they just simply cannot handle having another person dependent on this already minuscule income. But there have been instances where families give their young child up for adoption, actually, in hopes of them having a better life and not be, stuck in migrant camps, but they were lied to and manipulated. One prominent example of this comes from the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, where children protection programs in the region noticed how there was a large uptick in the number of missing children and child and female adoptions that took place. But there was also this grow in the large pool of potential adoptees in Indonesia. This instance, shows how families may be told that they are providing a better life for their child and that they will be able to make a name for themselves and have a better, future. But in reality, they were lied to in a manner that only benefited their quote unquote adopters and who are really just traffickers in disguise. And this instance is evocative of the hundreds of different mechanisms employed by trafficking circuits to exploit young children and women in times of climate crisis, because there is desperation, there is vulnerability. But this is not an unsolvable issue. There's hope. We can tackle these issues through a variegated lens, one which takes into account empowering women and youth. These lenses provide us with a strong foundation so we can tackle the issue in the present and set a precedent for the future. In times of displacement, oftentimes migrants, if they are lucky, they are able to gain abode in a migrant camp. And the problem with a lot of these migrant camps is that they are understaffed and don't have enough resources to support everyone. And that often leads to this overwhelming sense that comes upon the staff in the migrant camp. But having global organizations, the coalitions, then does indeed help. In times of displacement, these migrant camps should and must implement a registration database that records all those who reside in there. And the camp itself must be up to a certain standard. Going to the point of registration database, if a camp is overwhelmed with migrants who are displaced because of a climate crisis, they have no choice but to, turn their attention to a certain group of people. It'll be impossible for them to keep track of everyone without some sort of database that lists a person's information. So once a migrant and their family or just a solo migrant shows up at these camps, they can simply give their name, their age, where they're from, any information that they can provide that we put into this database, which will obviously be protected by a reliable third-party entity like a volunteer who has nothing to gain from leaking this information and having these people trafficked. And what this does is that it prevents the instances of traffickers coming in and taking people. Having daily checks, on the database, that they'll check that if the first 50 people are still here, making sure that everything's okay. This database will be updated daily as well, showing that who is still in this camp, who has, voluntarily left of their own volition. And to the point of camps being up to a certain standard, there are global standards that have been set by organizations, and these camps must adhere to these standards. Certain standards like having sufficient lodging, having sufficient amount of food, having, volunteers who don't necessarily have underhanded intentions, severe background checks for those who are going to be involved in migrant camps, because this is technically a hot spot for trafficking. And women should also have the option of being in a separate area where they can reside with their children or even by themselves if they are all alone, because oftentimes there are those who within the camp will exploit women and children because they are simply there and they have no other outlet. This is them at their weakest and most desperate. And if this should happen, women should also have the option to report any sexual gender-based violence or any potential traffickers they may come across. This tool should be made anonymous if, the women do choose that they want to stay anonymous. And when it comes to gender and sexual based violence, this will prevent this from ever happening to anyone else. If they witnessed it, again, prevent them, from this happening to anyone else. But also when it comes to potential traffickers and reporting potential traffickers, we see that oftentimes people will leave the camps temporarily and come across a potential trafficker in the neighborhood because they will set up camp near these migrant areas because they know that they will come across climate migrants, or they may enter the camp somehow and speak with everyone about potential job opportunities and this promise of goodness in a foreign land. So if someone feels that something is suspicious about them, they should be able to report this, because again, oftentimes these migrant camps are understaffed and any sort of help from the migrants will indeed help protect everyone. This tool, empowers women to safely report incidents or things that they've seen and interactions they've had that they would otherwise be forced to keep mum about, because if they're scared that if they speak up, they might be kicked out, there would be repercussions, they would be seen as difficult, anything like that will be mitigated. With respect to unaccompanied children and young women, who have no others with them, they are the most vulnerable and they should be identified immediately. So with identification, not only should everyone be registered on a database, but the minute that they enter said migrant camp, they should be issued some sort of identification card in case there's an emergency that leaves them separated from the camp. Oftentimes these camps get overwhelmed and they have to let some people go, or there is forcefully they're forcibly taken somewhere, or they get lost because they don't know the area very well. If they have these migrant identification cards, they can easily show authorities who can lead them back to these migrant camps. And also, now that they have this ID, they are linked to a database as well. So if they see
Okay,
that
Simbo, I'm thinking that we don't have the time. So we can stop it now and then continue. Simbo, can you hear me? Okay, thank you, Simbo. What we're going to do is we're going to upload it on our website, and then everybody can have a look at it. Nandini Singh is a very young girl who has done tremendous work in activism, in combating human trafficking, and she also is a UN advocate. She's done quite a lot of work, and she has touched on so many important things in that presentation. One of the things that caught my attention is that there is hope. There is hope. So on that note, before we close today's meeting, I also would like to mention that a lot is happening. You know, the vulnerability of migrating populations is so clear, with extreme weather conditions and all of that for, you know, for us in Nigeria, for example, you know, extreme weather conditions, vulnerable people in migrating populations find themselves at risk from sexual exploitation and forced labor. All those things continue to happen to women and girls who are concerned, really, especially in Women's Consortium of Nigeria and Solar Sister. So climate change has increased the risk of natural disasters, and it places a strain on livelihoods. And when these conditions happen, there is nothing else that happens except that it makes them vulnerable to the trafficking in persons, which we call TIP, and then all sorts of other forms of exploitation and abuse. And of course, we have been exploring all day the nexus, the connection between trafficking and smuggling. Although there are not too many academic studies or policy documents, but you know, the interesting thing about it is that, you know, it is rarely given any consideration as a priority cause when we talk about trafficking in persons and smuggling of migrants. Climate change never comes into it. This interconnection remains unexplored, and that is why we are bringing it to the attention of the public that climate change disasters can cause unexpected loss of land. It can turn victims into poverty overnight. You know, it can also result in displacement, with victims, you know, looking for safety, moving away because of all the things that have happened to them, you know. So a lot of the times you see that they face coastal erosion, sea level rise, land erosion, drought, or extreme weather conditions like we have had in Nigeria in the last 4 or 5 months. And this may cause vulnerable people to migrate to find themselves at risk from sexual exploitation or the forced labor. So that is the link, that's the interconnection, in that people are forced away from where they live as a result of disasters and livelihood threats, and they become victims, you know, child labor, domestic servitude, and all of that. So we need to explore, experts especially need to explore climate-related, you know, provisions and solutions that would help us to keep making, you know, people who are migrating vulnerable and all of that. What have we done in WOCON? We have worked tremendously with National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, and NAPTIP's 5 goals are on policy, prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnership. Of course, NAPTIP is the only sole has the sole responsibility to prosecute, and they have prosecuted up to date over 500 traffickers. You know, we also collaborate with ECPAT International, who work with children. They're a global organization and a coalition of over 120 nations in 120 members in over 100 countries of the world, fighting commercial sexual exploitation of children and sexual exploitation of children in travel and tourism. WOCON is their key member, and we have been carrying this along to hotels, and we have been spreading the news that children should not be allowed to be exploited by adults in hotels. We work with the National Commission for Refugee, Migrants, and Internally Displaced Persons, Ministry of Women Affairs, Ministry of Youth and Social Development, and we have continued to work, you know, tirelessly to ensure that women are empowered. Because when women are empowered, like Hannatu has told us today, when empowerment of women is, you know, is paramount, then you can see that all these issues will not, you know, be a problem, because women who have been empowered, people like us who are talking, we've been empowered. We have information, we have knowledge, we know our children have information that traffickers do lure people into things, that displacement can cause, you know, smuggling of migrants, that all forms of vulnerability, including climate change, and all of these things can cause all this. So WOCON, as I round up this evening, continues to renew our commitment for women's equal rights and access to participation and leadership skills. We are projecting that, especially in governance and in decision-making positions. Positive measures continue, you know, in partnership, we continue to look for positive measures to make sure that women are fully empowered and that there is a cultural change that breaks barriers and structures that have held women down for years. Thank you very much, very, very much for what you have done. Omobola Alibalogo, thank you for coming. Peace, Oluyomi, Padmini, Sarah, Victoria, Sonia, and all other people that I have not mentioned. Ayoade, I can see you. We met in Abeokuta. Your organization came to speak to women during the empowerment program. So we're glad to have you. Alma, Makwito, Victoria, Edmonds, all of you, thank you very much. I think we should take a photograph now, Symbol, and then we can ask Dr. Alapo to close the meeting before CSW gets us out of here.
Okay, maybe while you're doing your closing remarks, if for everyone who can turn on their video, please turn on your video so we can take a group photo. Thank you everyone for coming. See you. Okay, I'm gonna take it in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Photo taken. I just have 2 pages. I just need to do the second page. Done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Alapo.
Thank you very much, Ms. Morenike, and you know, for co-organizing this event today. We thank God that we were able to pull it off, and I want to especially thank Olasimbo Sojirin from Solar Sisters, and Ms. Morenike Omaiboje, Mr. Olukunle Adeogun, all from WOCON, Women's Consortium of Nigeria, for spearheading this program. And also I would like to thank the keynote speaker, Ms. Hannatu, such wonderful and empowering presentation. Thank you also to Mr. Femi for your comments. You're definitely right, the work continues, and it is the engagement of men such as yourself, and of course, Mr. Adeogun, that, you know, we, you know, in supporting women's rights in supporting women's leadership, that many women are able to thrive and continue in leading. And also for the youth representative in New York, thank you so much for your recording. I think you mentioned a lot of important points, and we look forward to listening to the rest on the WOCON's website. And finally, I would like to thank all the members of the joint panel. First and foremost, Dr. Tokes Shofola from African Women Alliance, Auntie Mabel from Sister to Sister International, and Ms. Sherry Brannan, also from Sister to Sister International, and also the Millennium Development Watch in Suriname. And, you know, thank you so much for the all the years that we've been partnering together in bringing about the joint panel during the CSW. And of course, you know, members of Institute for Peace and Leadership. The work continues. I hope you continue to join us, you know, in the fight against climate injustice, in, you know, combating human trafficking, and in supporting women's leadership. I thank you today for joining us, and see you next year. Thank you so much, Women's Consortium of Nigeria. And let's give a round of applause to everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Alapo. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. Let's remember to continue to promote women's economic empowerment. Let's continue to, you know, endeavor to continue to empower women to initiate the social economic development of the girl child and women everywhere. Thank you, and God bless you. Have a very good evening, a very good day, and a very good morning, as the case may be. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. See you next year.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Bye-bye. I forgot to thank my one and only Atinuke. Thank you, Atinuke. I celebrate you. Thank you for all your support. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Simbo. Thank you, Mr. Adeogun. All WOCON member teams, we thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.